Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today we are actually talking about that. So this video is unscripted, unresearched. It is more about my experience, and if you are here for the in-depth comparison videos, fear not, we have one coming out soon about house numbering in the UK versus US. It's very interesting. But I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic today because it's been 2 years now. I think it's been, it's 2024. So it's been 2 years since I got my British citizenship. And I was looking back on my old YouTube videos because actually I was doing YouTube at the time. And I kind of documented the process of studying for the Life in the UK test, applying for citizenship. I've done videos about how much the whole thing costs, which is a lot of money. And now it's funny to me because I just am a citizen. Like, I finally achieved that goal or that milestone. So looking back on it, like from now to 2 years ago, is really interesting to think of how has that changed things for me practically? Has it changed things for me emotionally? So I thought I would do an update on how it feels 2 years in to being a British citizen. So firstly, if you didn't watch the original video about getting my citizenship, I actually had to go to my citizenship ceremony so it would have been January of 2022. And still at that point, they were not allowing for visitors, for guests to come to the citizenship ceremony. So I think that was maybe in hindsight still the biggest disappointment about the process, was because of the situation going on at the time. You spend 10 years living in a country and you finally are getting citizenship and you're expecting it to be this event that people can come to, even if it's just like, I don't know, your husband or like one family member or something, and nobody could come in with me. So it was just me in a room with other people who were getting citizenship, but again, no guests for them either. And we kind of did the ceremony, which again, I talk about in that other video. And then I didn't stick around because there was nothing to, the people I wanted to celebrate with were outside of the room. So it was kind of disappointing how it ended up happening. But it's not something that keeps me up at night. So I'm not that worried, but that is kind of more context of what my citizenship journey looked like. Long journey, then just me in a room pledging allegiance to the Queen. And then I left and we celebrated afterwards. But yeah, so it's been 2 years since I got citizenship. So what has changed? Number one, I ended up getting my UK passport. Once you get your citizenship papers, then you can go ahead and apply for your UK passport. This was very necessary for me because I do travel outside of the UK and coming back in, and so you want to have your UK passport to travel. If you are I am a dual citizen, like I say in the beginning of every single video. So I do have an American passport and I have a UK passport, but because I am a British citizen, I'm not actually entirely aware. I mean, I'm assuming that you would need the UK passport as a British citizen, but I can travel on my American passport, so it gets a little confusing, but I have both physical copies of the passports. And so that would be the first difference, is that when I come back into the UK, I no longer have to worry about like seeing an immigration officer or worrying about whether I have the right visa to enter. Since they introduced the e-gates, it's been a little bit easier because actually on an American passport, you can just pretty much enter anyway. But back in the day, it used to be very stressful because I'd have to go in the non-EU, non-UK line, and every single person had to speak to an immigration officer. They would quiz you on why you were there, what you were doing there, whether you were planning on overstaying your visa, all that stuff. So my days of entering a UK airport or, going through UK customs and feeling stressed out is long gone. I just use my passport, show on up, scan it on the thing. I'm a British citizen. They let me in. all is well. I do travel, however, with both passports at all times. So in the US, if you are a US citizen, regardless of where you live, there is some sort of rule about entering on your US passport. So funnily enough, no matter where I'm coming from, no matter what airline I'm flying, I typically will use my American passport to input in the airline's data if I'm going to be going to the US or transiting through the US at any point. If I'm going somewhere from like England to France or England to anywhere else, I then would typically use my UK passport in the airline's system, but I still carry both. And if I'm entering the US or transiting through the US, when I get to actual US customs, I will use my American passport. And if I am leaving or entering the UK, even if I've just come from America, I will enter on my UK passport. So I feel like a whole world has opened up to me in terms of having multiple passports and being able to kind of fly through security a lot easier, especially here in the UK. That was a long time talking about passports and travel. So moving on, the second thing that I wrote down to talk about is I have them somewhere, but I don't know where my citizenship papers are. So I don't even know, I think I got like an official certificate. I must have shown it in the video. I mean, that's gotten lost in mounds of paperwork since then. It's not like it's lost forever. It hasn't been thrown away. But I didn't like hang it up in my space. I got the passport. I'm a British citizen. Somewhere I have a document or some sort of certificate signed by someone saying I am one. But again, with the passport, I'm like, this is proof enough anyway. So I haven't lost the citizenship papers, but definitely once the citizenship ceremony was over, they're kind of filed away with like old bank statements and stuff like that. Okay, the next thing that's changed, and I haven't had to do this, but if I had to, it would be a lot easier, is I have a lot more options when it comes to things like bank accounts and specifically mortgages. So when initially I was buying the house that I currently live in, I was not a citizen at the time because this was like 6 years ago. And your pool of banks that are willing to give you a mortgage are much smaller if you are not a citizen or if you're not on a permanent visa. So indefinite leave to remain, those people do have more options as well. But at the time, I wasn't even at that stage. I was on a partner visa. It was not the indefinite. I hadn't gotten to the indefinite stage. I hadn't gotten citizenship. I hadn't gotten citizenship yet. Oh, I just said the word gotten. I'm gonna get some comments about that. And yeah, so that was kind of stressful because you don't have as many options when it comes to how much a bank is willing to lend you or the interest rates and stuff like that. So now, being a full UK citizen, I can borrow money at kind of the same rates as other permanent residents and citizens, which is a good perk. The next thing that's changed, and I haven't actually done this, but I am able to vote in the UK now. And the only reason I haven't done it is because I haven't been aware of an election in the past 2 years that I was able to vote in. Maybe I've missed something, but whenever the next like big election comes around, I will be able to vote because I am a fully qualified citizen. So I actually can vote in 2 countries now. American citizens can continue to vote as long as they're citizens, even if you live abroad. So I am able to vote in the US and able to vote in the UK. And I definitely do this whenever it comes around. So until you are at that stage, then you cannot vote, which I think is fair enough. But I put in my time, got my citizenship, and now I have the right to vote in the UK. The next thing I want to talk about is probably why I made this video in the first place, because I think it's an interesting data point for anybody who is on the same journey as me or considering getting citizenship to another country, going on that long journey. Do I feel more British now? That's kind of a question that I get asked and I think about. And the answer is that culturally, no. I do not feel more British in a cultural perspective than I did before. I don't think that that comes with getting citizenship or not getting citizenship. Obviously, the longer that you live somewhere, the more you adapt to a place, then you can understand the culture more. So obviously I understand the culture more and I am much more integrated, but that's based on the amount of time I've lived here. I don't feel like anything changed the second that I got British citizenship. However, if we're not talking from a cultural perspective, if we're talking from a practical perspective, once I got citizenship, I did feel from a practical perspective a lot more at home. So I felt like, again, not that I belong from a sense of I like sound like everybody else, because I don't, or I have a similar upbringing to someone who was, born and raised in the UK as a citizen, because I don't. But this kind of sense of belonging in general, definitely as soon as I got citizenship, I think changed a lot for me, where I felt like actually this is my home and it has been my home, but now it's kind of on paper that this is my home. I can't just be kicked out. I can't have my visa revoked. And there are a lot of discussions now, if you've been reading the news, about changes to the visa process, which will be my final point, but I don't have to worry about that stuff as much anymore. But at the time, and people who are going through it now, you have to be aware of how much money you need to be making to get the next visa, or what kind of job you need to have, or to get citizenship. I think I had to be in the UK I had to be in the UK on the same day of application 3 years prior. So if I applied on January 1st of 2023, as an example, I would have had to have physically been present in the UK 3 years prior to that date, which seems like an arbitrary number to me. But if I was on holiday, because I'm doing a video about British citizenship, my British words are coming out. Typically I'd say vacation. But if I were on holiday, then 3 years prior to the date of application, I would have had to wait until I could apply on a date where I was in the country exactly 3 years prior to that date. Anyway, so the point is, I've lost the point really, but the point that I was getting at is that kind of stuff all went away. When I got my passport, I got citizenship, and I just felt like a lot more just instantly accepted, in a way that I think when you're on a visa, you still feel like an outsider. And again, fair enough. You put in your time, you go through the process, and once you reach the citizenship point, for me was the point at which I was definitely ready to feel like I was part of the country, rather than somebody who was on the outside looking in and just happened to be physically present in the country but didn't belong, if this makes any sense whatsoever. Now, the last thing on my list, and has been getting darker throughout this video. Okay. And the last thing on my list, which I did mention in my last point, was that I have less day-to-day visa worry. So it wasn't that I was necessarily worried that I would be kicked out of the country just completely randomly. However, when you're on a visa, things can change. Things are changing now. They've increased, or are going to increase, the minimum amount of yearly income that people need to have in the UK in order to sponsor their spouse or partner. I think the amount is also going up for people on a work visa. And this can change really as fast as they want to change it. And you can be caught out because you don't make that amount of money, or you're not in the right kind of job. The rules can change. And so I guess living with the day-to-day worry of, are the rules going to change? Am I in the right position? Am I making sure that I'm in the country on the right days? Is this a secure situation? Is honestly a lot of stress to go through. And it's something that I chose, but equally, this is just the reality of, if you are with somebody who's from another country and you would like to like live together or have a life together, you have to deal with this whether you like it or not. So I didn't like dealing with it at the time, but it was something that we needed to do. And it's understandable that there are rules, but the fact that the rules can change and the game can change midway through your visa process and your visa journey is scary. I would also have to do things like remember to keep certain paperwork that maybe you might get rid of, like old bank statements that you might say, well, you know, I want these to just be like electronic statements. When I was applying for my visa and I was applying for my final like indefinite leave, throughout most of those years, you still had to submit paper applications to UKVI. So that means that I had to make sure that I was having physical copies of stuff. I couldn't choose the electronic version. I would have to go out of my way to make sure that I was collecting all of this information all the time, because if I got to that visa application point and didn't have it, that can be a real problem. Nowadays, like literally since I got citizenship and COVID changed a lot, they've gone a lot more digital now because the world is mostly digital. But back when I was applying, even a couple years ago, you still needed a lot of paper documents. So to be a citizen now and to not have to worry about that kind of stuff has freed up my life and my mental space in a lot of other ways. It was almost like this huge weight of worry was taken off of me. And so it was like a celebration of something I had gained, which was citizenship and which was these opportunities, like I said, of having the right to vote, feeling like I belong, but it was also like removing this huge sense of worry that I had dealt with for years and years and years. And now looking back, it's sometimes hard to think about it's hard to remember how I used to feel about that constant worry and that constant struggle of, am I going to meet the requirements, or am I going to have to leave the country that I, own a house in randomly? And now I don't have to worry about that. There's other stuff that I worry about, but I don't have to worry about that. And I just feel settled, and I feel like both places are equally home, and I don't think that will ever change. But I think definitely it finally got the UK to a point in my mind where it just felt like calm and settled, and I could really like start to get involved just in things and in the country and in the culture in ways that I didn't necessarily before. Now, this video was mostly for people who are on the expat journey. I know my channel has changed a bit, and I'm really enjoying the informational stuff that we're doing. But just because it's been 2 years, I thought I would make this update video for anybody who might be curious on how it feels or what it feels like. And if you haven't seen my old citizenship videos, definitely check those out. So thank you very much for watching. For those of you who have joined me on this journey for actually quite a while, for those who were there back in the getting citizenship days, maybe you're still around. If you're still around, and if you remember and watched me getting citizenship back then, comment below, because that is a true testament of dedication on your part. But if you're new, that was the story. So here we are today, hence why my intro is, and changed to be, I'm a dual UK and American citizen, because it used to be, hi, I'm Kaylin and I've been like living in the UK for however many years, and now I get to say I'm a dual citizen. So that's my final point. My YouTube intro got to change. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, our next video will be on the differences between house numbering in the UK and the US, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you guys next time.